before we start this, let's do one thing for me, if you don't mind. It's been a long day, and I am assuming some of you are still experiencing fluorescent light, and I'm sure that all of us have at some point today. So, Mandar talked about a couple of ways to turn the two hemispheres of the brain back on, and I want to show you just one more that I think that will be helpful sometimes. So if you'll take your arms and cross them over like this, and if you'll tap 10 times for me. And then take the other arm and put it on top. And then across your lap, 10. And the other arm on top. What happens is that, hello, the frequency of the brain does not resonate with many of our man-made frequencies. And because we don't especially resonate at the frequency of fluorescent lighting, it confuses the corpus callosum, and it keeps the two hemispheres of the brain from really engaging in a way that is beneficial. So when you get to the store and you're wandering up and down the aisles and you're thinking, what did we need? Why'd she send me? Well, brain's not working together anymore. So 10, 10, 10, 10. We cross the meridian, we turn the brain back on. Another one that works really well is right under the clavicle. There are two little indentions right under here. It doesn't have to be skin on skin. You can do it through your shirt. The other hand goes over your belly button. You rub 10 times, or 20 times, sorry. And then you switch hands and 20 this way. And a lot of the teenagers that I work with like this one, because it's not, they don't feel like they look like they're having a seizure in class if they're having trouble concentrating. So this one, I tell them that people aren't really paying quite as much attention as we think they are, but this one is a little, sure. So here, right under the clavicle, there are two little indentions, right? And the other hand's over the belly button, and you rub 20 times, and then you change this hand over the belly button and you rub 20 times. And it will do the same thing. It kind of gets everything working together again. So just a couple of ways when you start to feel, you know, a little out there and it's not the time for that, this kind of help wakes the brain up. So that's kind of my area. What I like is the brain, and what I want is for all of our bodies, the physical and the emotional and the spiritual, to all work together, because it's about coming back to a place of resonance. It's about coming back to a place of balance, and it takes all of our bodies aligning, I believe, for that to happen. And so I think it is important, as we learn different ways to do that, or we have found different avenues that work, I think it's important to share that. So that's kind of what I want to do with you guys today. I want to talk about brain arousal because it's important. And there are so many times that, let's see, how do I want to do this? I think Western medicine is an amazing concept and science. And I think it's important, and I think it's valuable. And so there are also times that I think perhaps there's a kinder, gentler way to do something. And as we become more evolved and we learn to love each other on a deeper level, on a more basic level, we will eventually understand that it all has a place and that it all works together. And so one of the reasons I think brain arousal is so important is because it affects us in so many different ways. So EEG brainwave frequencies are related to, and you've seen delta waves and alpha waves and theta waves and beta waves, high beta waves. You've seen different waves, I'm sure. And we want to be in different states depending on what it is we want to do. And sometimes it feels like we're not in control of our own system, and we're not in control of our bodies or our thought patterns or our emotions or our willpower or any of those things. And when we have a better understanding of what's happening here, then it's easier to find a way to make the stuff work in the way that we want it to. And so Particular patterns of these frequencies determine the difference between winning and losing, A's and F's, happiness and despair, peace and rage. So prolonged stress, physical and physiological trauma, substance abuse, any of these things can alter the set point of our central nervous system and push it out of that normal range into a state of rage, perhaps, or into a state of over-arousal or under-arousal. And so understanding what happens and why we're in a particular pattern, I think, is often really helpful, and it gives us power. It gives us an ability to make a choice or to make a decision, because the more we understand what we're doing or what's happening in our autonomic nervous system and in our neural pathways, the more we understand that, the more control we have, because ultimately, you know, it's all happening here. We're the ones that get depressed, or we're the ones that get over-aroused and can't calm down, or we're the ones that have a panic. You know, it's happening here. And when we're able to control what happens here, then it's a lot easier to deal with the stresses and the things that come up in life. So under-aroused brain waves are not very deep, right? They just kind of bump along. That doesn't look like a very motivated wave, that first one, does it? It just kind of looks like it's bouncing around and kind of runs into something perhaps there at the end. Oh my God, I woke up for a second. So, and then some of us are over-aroused. I can't imagine that you could guess which category I might fall into. And over-aroused brains are always here, right? If you stand close enough, you can hear the vibration. And so what we want is to find a place where we're not stuck anywhere. We don't want to be stuck in an over-aroused state. We don't want to be stuck in an under-aroused state. And some people suffer from a condition called tired but wired, where they don't get stuck in an over-aroused or an under-aroused state. Unfortunately, they vacillate wildly between the two states and have absolutely no control. So, let me give you an idea of some of the things that happen with under-aroused brains. Those where we stay in an under-aroused state, oftentimes you can find dyslexia, PDD, depression, enuresis, speech and language problems, ADD or ADHD, learning disabilities. A lot of attention focus, those kinds of issues are under-arousal issues in the brain. And over-aroused brains tend to have chronic pain, OCD. I saw the best shirt. It said, I have a condition like OCD, except it's CDO, and all the letters are in order like they are supposed to be. I thought, that's awesome. I love that. Why didn't they call it that? I don't understand. So, PTSD, autism and Asperger's, cerebral palsy, rage, restless leg syndrome is an over-aroused issue. Menopause issues with menopause or issues with menstrual cycle are also usually over-aroused conditions. Tics, eating disorders, attachment disorders. So for those that vacillate back and forth between under-aroused and over-aroused, we see addictions and epilepsy, bipolar, TBI, migraines, vertigo, seizures, oppositional defiant, mood swings, irritable bowel, hypoglycemia, fibromyalgia, sleepwalking, and asthma. So it's fascinating that how our brain responds to stimuli can affect us on such an incredible level. By the time people get to me, a lot of times they feel completely out of control. And that CDO has completely taken over. Or, you know, their panic attacks to the point that their lives are really, really disrupted. And so it's just so important that we spend some time looking at what stresses the body and how we can come to a better understanding of what calms the body and what will bring us back into a state of homeostasis. So stress is everywhere, and stress isn't going anywhere, and life isn't necessarily going to get any easier. But stress isn't what kills us. It's how we respond to stress that kills us, right? And so it depends on what we do. It depends on how we act. It depends on our coping mechanisms. And my belief system is the larger the toolbox that we have, the more ways we have to take care of ourselves, the more ways we know to be healthy, the better chance we have of staying that really strong core. Because when something difficult happens, we can't always stay balanced, regardless of how clear we are or how healthy we are. But when we get knocked off of balance, how nice it is to be able to find our way back faster. And so, you know, it's just so important to me that we begin to understand what we can do in order to have a strong, steady, balanced core so it's available to us when we need it. So I want to talk to you about a couple of things that we can do to bring balance back to the brain. There was a study out of Australia a couple of years ago, and they had 8 men and 16 women. And within an 8-week period, they had decreased stress, they had increased willpower, they had reduced depression, they had better heart rate, they had better cholesterol in 8 weeks, they had better blood pressure. They started an exercise program. And it doesn't matter what you do. What's the best exercise program for you? It's the one you'll freaking do. That's the best one. So just pick something you like. Pick something you enjoy and do it. Get outside. Green time, and it doesn't have to be hours and hours and hours. Studies show that 5 minutes of being outside in a green environment. So a park, or if you're at work, at least go stand next to a tree or a cactus or something. Get a little green, get a little fresh air. It does amazing things to the body and to the system. Memory games are huge. Remember we played with our kids, or well, everybody, almost everybody has an iPad or a smartphone or something. You can download these suckers for free. 20 minutes a day playing a memory game of any type, you are golden. Absolutely golden. So, it doesn't have to be 20 minutes all at one time. And I certainly don't make 20 minutes a day, but if I get 5 or 6 minutes in, I feel really good about that, because that's 5 or 6 minutes more that I have that I didn't have before. And one of the coolest things about this stuff is we are creating more gray matter. The prefrontal cortex is huge. It's an important part of the brain. And one of the things that's most important about the prefrontal cortex is that it is the babysitter of the brain. The amygdala is the one that says, we got to do it, we got to do it, we got to go, we got to go, we got to have it, we got to have it, we got to punch that guy in the nose, we got to, you know, whatever it is. We've got to yell at that car in front of us. And the prefrontal cortex is that part that says, are you sure? Is hitting the guy in the nose really the best response? Mandar and I were walking through the airport somewhere at some time. I don't remember exactly. I need more memory game. And you know how, more so in the mall perhaps for me than airports, have you ever walked in the mall and you smell that Cinnabon store? Okay. And the next thing you know, you got sticky lips and a receipt in your hand? Let me tell you what happens from the moment you smell it to the moment where you're like, did I just do that? Did that happen? Okay, because they're brilliant. These people are brilliant because they're usually by the doors. You know, they're in the front of the food court. So all those other smells are not part of their, you know, wafting out into the open area of the mall. And so you're walking along and you smell the smell, and you smell the cinnamon and the butter and the, holy cow. And the amygdala, which is the part of our brain that has kept us alive for millennia, says, oh, we have to have that. Because, what, thousands of years ago, they didn't have Cinnabon stores. The amygdala doesn't care what you eat. It just knows in order to keep you alive, you need to eat something. And we smell something, so that's as good as anything else, and I don't see any celery, so let's go. And so you start toward the store, and the prefrontal cortex kicks in, and it says, wait a minute, what about the skinny jeans? This is not where you want to be. And the amygdala is like, I'll show you. And so it releases dopamine. Whoosh. Well, dopamine clouds the prefrontal cortex. It makes you distracted. It makes you forget about the skinny jeans. And so you start walking toward the store. The amygdala starts to freak out a little bit because we're not walking fast enough. And so it says to the body, quick, do something. So somewhere in your body there is this explosion of energy. And you have a great, quick drop in blood sugar. The amygdala is going, see, we are dying. Go get the sugar. And the next thing you know, you've got sticky lips and a receipt in your hand. Right? So, and some of you can afford sticky lips and a receipt in your hand. Some of us can't. So, in order to build a stronger, more powerful prefrontal cortex, we exercise. We get outside. We play memory games. We meditate. And we breathe. We breathe. There's a great study that shows, and I want to do just a really short activity with you to kind of get you in the swing of this. There's a great study that shows all of these activities will build gray matter. I mean, seriously, add gray matter to the prefrontal cortex, which to me is an amazing thing. It doesn't matter your age. And in doing so, we have more self-control. We have a greater opportunity to make a choice. I don't care what choice you make. I don't care if you make a good choice or a bad choice. That's not my place to judge. I just want you to know you have a choice. That every act, that everything we do is a choice, and we chose it because we're the ones doing it. And when we realize that we're the one in control, that we can take responsibility on a deeper level, it expands our consciousness. It makes us more aware, and being awake and aware is the point, yes? So, one of the things we're going to do, and I am going to talk about sound for a second. One of the things we're going to do is I want to teach you, and I'm sure you all already know this, but it's a nice thing to practice together. When we reduce the breath to no more than 6 breaths a minute, so that's 5 counts in and 5 counts out. You can do this anywhere. You can do this driving, you can do this standing in line at the bank, you can do this in the shower, cooking dinner, at your computer, doesn't matter. This one you can do anywhere. If you can get it down to 3 or 4 breaths a minute, even better. And for some reason, 20 minutes is the golden number. So if you can work in 20 minutes of this a day, memory issues, dementia, all of these things are greatly reduced. Heart rate variability is increased. Willpower is increased. Depression is decreased. It's just amazing how something so simple can make a difference. Now, on top of that, studies show that if we include a little sound, things are even better. So I'm going to borrow some of Mandara sound, because Stephen Halpern is an amazing man, and he even did the intro and exit on some of my CD series. And so I just adore his music. And so we're going to use this, and we're just going to breathe for about 5 minutes. And we're going to work to count 5 counts in and 5 counts out. And there are apps, Breath Pacer, it's a free app. Helps you regulate your breathing, because I do this with all my clients, and I work with kids and adults, and it's so nice to be able, and the kids love it, right? Because I'll put the kid in charge of making the family breathe, and how much fun to be like the king of the timer, right? And so they, oh, you should see these little power freaks go crazy, but it's nice. And so everybody needs to feel powerful part of the time. And so you know, so there's some really easy ways to do this. You can do something real fancy, and you can do heart math, and you can do some really expensive things, and that's lovely if you want to, but you can get a free app called Breath Pacer if you want to do that as well. So get comfortable for me, if you will. And we're just going to breathe for a minute, if that's all right with you. So 5 counts in, 5 counts out. 5 counts in, 5 counts out. Don't hold your breath. That's a whole nother concept. It's a completely different workshop. Sometimes after, keep breathing, sometimes after a few minutes you'll start to feel a little tight, maybe even a little panicky. Just breathe on through, that's the amygdala saying, no, don't do it. So does your head feel heavier? Take a little time. Take care of yourself. Create the strongest possible core you can. Because you're it. You're the light worker. You're the one who came with a mission and has a job. and has a responsibility. We wouldn't be together otherwise. And we want to use what's available to us. Keeping the brain healthy makes the whole thing so much easier. And anytime you can add the sound, music's lovely and has a hugely important role in our lives. But when we add sound, as Mandara talked about earlier, that doesn't have a beat, that doesn't have a steady beat, that you can't begin to anticipate, we keep the system guessing. And when we keep the system guessing, we can go places we can't go otherwise. And we can build neuroplasticity in ways that we can't build otherwise. And so I ask you to give this a try and to play around with some of the things we did tonight. And if you can, I always like to know what people are doing. So I'm in Atlanta, and I am accessible in a number of ways. So feel free to contact to let us know what you're doing and how it helps or how it's different. And thank you guys so much for letting us do this tonight. We appreciate it. Thanks.